So wait, do I need to be in YouTube also?
You can if you want to read the chats.
Oh, I guess that makes sense.
Okay, we are good, and I got the little thingy up. Hey.
Ooh, I think we're lagging.
We're lagging? How bad are we talking?
It just they were lagging. Oh, it's bad.
I mean, we're supposed to lag a little bit. There's going to be latency. As long as we don't sound like robots. What do we sound like? Are you there? Oh no.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Ugh.
Okay. I am here.
Did it die?
Shit. I let's see.
I'm out here streaming and dream teaming.
Well, we have one viewer. Hello, viewer, as you watch us try to figure this out.
It might be me myself being the actual viewer.
Oh, it might be. Oh, and you just closed the stream.
Oh, my bad. Hold on, let me open it. Let me up that.
Well, it might be if I'm in, because I'm in YouTube.
I'm in.
Is it picking me up as well?
It should. Hold on. It should be. Try it now.
Okay, and can you hear me?
I mean,
Can you hear me?
should,
Hello?
it should be. Try it now.
Because I'm no longer hearing a repeat of us.
Okay, yeah, I can.
So, okay. Yeah, I'm no longer hearing a repeat, so I think we need to not stream our screens to each other while we go live.
That's probably going to be a little bit easier, but that means both of us probably just
Okay.
the Jamboard, so.
Okay, that's fine. Let me pull up the Jamboard.
And I probably shouldn't be watching the stream while doing it either, so I'm not going to watch the stream while streaming. And I think I'll still be able to. Well, I have OBS open, so it picks up everything. Because if I don't, it's gonna.
Hopefully.
Yeah. I have to like have it open.
Jamboard. Okay. Trying. Going over some pages. Okay. Well, everybody that's watching, I think we have a couple people that are 2 current viewers. It might be us, but I'm going to be excited if it's not. And I'm going to assume it's not.
Right.
Well, welcome everybody to episode 3 of DarkSideAdventures. This is week 2, and hopefully after today we will have some better audio. Even though I bought a microphone and it was supposed to be here and it's not. So it'll show up eventually. Darn Amazon.
But I mean, Amazon trucks are usually good about getting everything delivered and.
It's true. Well, it's like I said, it's kind of snowy, so I'm not too disappointed. I don't want anyone to get in a crash. So,
Or have anything bad happen. You know how that is.
exactly. I'm not wishing that on anyone. So, we have yet to post episode 2. We should remember to start posting that before we stream.
Yeah. True.
But this one's actually episode 3, which is on consent. Pretty excited for that one. We are going to be streaming all of the episodes live from now on, and then we will take the recordings, edit them. We'll put them up on YouTube and SoundCloud and all of that fun stuff on our next day. So like this one, we're recording on Sunday, and we will post it on Thursday. All edited and clean.
Or as clean as we can get it.
Yes, as clean as I'm able to get it with my novice editing skills. So
we all start somewhere.
Exactly. It's already better. Just wait till you hear the second one.
Very true.
The first one was bad.
Well,
okay.
Well, today is National Compliment Day. So
it sure is.
Yay. Compliment everybody obviously like in your household, everybody in your life that you of course love. Compliment people that do, a lot for you. If you're feeling extra generous, you can compliment the people that don't do a lot for you. So.
Yes, absolutely. Compliments can make people's day. Just appreciate the things that you see. There's beauty in the world. There's good in the world. You just have to look for it.
I appreciate you, Coco. I couldn't have been doing this episode 3 without you.
Agreed. I appreciate you, Edwin. You and your OBS that has got us able to stream because my computer could not do it.
We're live and real.
Yes. And you guys probably heard us fumble with it earlier. It's our first live stream, and you can probably tell.
And what's funny is we tried to live stream last Thursday, and
we did.
It was what was it the 24-hour rule or whatever it was
Yeah, it made us wait. We had to verify ourselves, and then it said it would take 24 hours to be able to verify it. And so it wouldn't let us live stream. We had some issues last week as well.
But here we are, back and strong.
Yeah, right? I think we figured it out. So. And it only goes out from here. Can't get any worse.
Let's hope not.
Oh, it better not get any worse.
Right. So, what's been going on with you?
Not much. I did some cooking in the past couple days. So Friday, I had a friend come over and we made roses out of apple and pie dough. What? So they were apple pies that looked like roses. They were super fun. We made the pie dough, which I'm very impressed with. We did not use store-bought. Yeah, it was a little mini apple pie that tasted that looked like a rose. It was really cool. Damn, and then tonight, I made chicken and rice, which is always delicious.
Okay, little chef there.
Yes, I didn't burn anything either. Well, okay, no, I lied. I burned the roses on accident. We were trying to get them not doughy, and then the bottoms burned a little bit, but only on 3 of them. So, almost not counting it.
Hey, I'll take it.
I will as well. I'm pretty happy with it. We didn't burn all of them, and we actually were able to cut off the bottom bits that were burnt, so it was fine. It didn't taste burnt. What about you? Any fun, exciting stories from work again?
Oh no, nothing crazy. Thankfully, I was supposed to have like a bunch of stops on Saturday because usually like they make me work like every other Saturday, but there wasn't too many stops. Thankfully, I had 15 whenever I checked Friday night. I woke up to 10, and I couldn't complain because I was out of work at like noon. So,
Too bad.
uh,
Well, I guess that depends. When did you wake up to go to work?
oh, I was at my first stop at about like 8 o'clock, 8:05.
Okay, that's not too bad.
No, it was wonderful.
It's
Like
not too bad.
I had the rest of the day to like do whatever I want. I got home at like 1 o'clock. I ate food. I got fat. You know how that is.
Sounds delicious.
Oh yeah.
Sounds delicious.
Um, other than that, like nothing major. Just been trying to like figure out more and more stuff. Obviously for the podcast, it's always like a thing. I'm kind of like trying to actually like figure out should I spend more time on the podcast like one like on certain days, or maybe like try to knock it out like a little bit every day. I haven't quite decided yet. So
That's I think the same things too. I'm like, well, do I need to spend more on the podcast? Am I spending too much? Am I obsessed with it? Am I annoying Edwin or anybody else I talk to about it? So,
nah, there's no annoyance. It's just one of those things where like
okay.
sometimes like when you're like overdriving and you don't really have to do that much, you know what I mean? Or like maybe you should be overdriving because you're not doing too much. It's just like you don't really
Yeah,
know. So
agreed. Well, I think in the past week, we've both learned quite a bit about being podcasters and editors and putting it all together. And I think we've done, because, neither of us have really ever done this before. I think we've done an okay job, and we'll just continue learning and getting better.
agreed. Anybody that says this shit is easy, you're lying.
Yes, they are lying through their teeth. So I wonder if it would, well, if you have the money to outsource things, it might be a little easier, but it is a two-person show at the moment.
Right.
So we have not outsourced anything. But I don't know, I'm kind of enjoying it. I'm enjoying that it's our baby and our heart child putting it all together.
It's a lot of. It's more of like a sweat baby than anything else.
It
Putting a lot of sweat
is.
into it.
Tears, blood, and sweat. Sweat, blood, and tears? I don't know. Whichever way they typically say it.
Yeah, blood, sweat, and tears.
There we go. I knew it sounded weird when I said it first.
All right, let me. Might as well go ahead and pull up these articles.
Okay, I've got them up. Which one do you want to do? Do you want to do the one with comics, or do you want to do the other one?
I'm gonna go with the comics first because the comics kind of set up for
Okay.
the other one.
I am, in case anybody comes in. Oh, how do I get into the live chat? Come here, live chat. I was gonna try to post these in live chat, but apparently it's not on.
I'm gonna work my OBS magic here.
Okay, work your magic.
And here we go. We got up on the screen here. So
Ooh,
everybody can kind of see it.
I don't see it.
You probably don't see it yet, but it's about to like pop up on the screen.
Okay.
Is it on there?
Still just the DarkSideAdventures.
Oh, for real? Maybe it's slow.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. There it is.
Woo! So, I'll wait and just make sure like everything's good. Okay.
Yeah.
So this article is clearly about establishing consent, or what does it mean? And shout out to like everybody in the Marine Corps, and just those in all of like our our armed forces. But
Agreed.
This one just kind of went out. It was a while back. Obviously, this is kind of like an old article, but Says this month, SAPR released a set of comic strips addressing different aspects of consent, uh, featured below the article. And check out these talking points to learn more about consent and why Marines and the general public need to be aware of its tenets. So, consent is an integral part of any relationship, but a must in all sexual relationships. Consent is freely
Agreed.
giving. A, Consent is freely given agreement to the conduct at issue by a competent person. A lack of express consent, either through words or conduct, means there is no consent given. Um, I will agree with that, of course.
I agree. That's a good point there. It's integral in, I like that word. Um, it's essential in all relationships, especially a sexual relationship, and it has to be freely given. It can't just be forced and pressured into given.
Agreed. And obviously, like, there's just because somebody doesn't like say something, doesn't mean that they're actually giving consent, and that's kind of where this one's kind of going. So it says lack of verbal or physical resistance or submission resulting from the use of force, threat of force, or placing another person in fear does not constitute consent.
Exactly. You cannot bully somebody into giving the answer that you want. That's not true consent.
And is
I like this next one. A current or previous dating or social or sexual relationship by itself or the manner of dress a person does not manner of dress of a person does not constitute consent. A sleeping, unconscious, or incompetent person cannot consent. A person's previous sexual acts, experience, and or history does not constitute consent. Just because you've had consent and sex before does not mean they consent to have sex with you now. Does not mean they consent to let you ride their scooter. That's what one of the comics is again. So I like comics. So I no, I really like that one because people will be. I've had people be like, "Well, you said it was fine before, or you did it before. Why don't you want to do it now?" And or
uh,
you did it with so and so.
oh yeah, that's
Why
my
can't
favorite.
we? Oh,
The rules are just kind of different for everybody. So let's be fair there.
yes, yes.
Would you like to hit the? Is it the last
Yeah, I
point
can.
here?
I think there's two more. So consent must be given by all parties before any sexual contact. Anyone can withdraw their consent at any point for any reason during the sexual contact. Consent is active and ongoing. If there is any doubt about somebody's ability to give or get consent, it's best to wait. All parties must be of legal age to consent. So those are pretty simple and to the point. I agree with all of them, and I feel like there's no expanding on them because they're so to the point.
True.
So,
Um,
and then the last one,
Go ahead.
do you want to do? Okay. Healthy relationships and interactions consist of characteristics that are agreed upon by those in the relationship. Examples of characteristics of healthy relationships, interactions include mutual respect, mutual trust, effective communication, and respect for established boundaries. I really like that one
Very true.
um, as well. I like all of these. They just kind of build on top of each other. It's a really good article.
Yeah,
Um,
they're very simple, but it's like it's still effective.
exactly. Well, and I like the, you can have relationships that aren't healthy, but like it says, a healthy relationship and healthy interactions have to have that mutual respect, have to have the mutual trust and the effective communication. And you have to have respect for the boundaries that you've established and respect for yourself to establish those boundaries. And I feel like when somebody ignores those or somebody tramples over the boundaries, that really just shows that it's not a healthy interaction. And you'll want to see if you should really think to yourself, is this like a once over where they were in a bad mood and they still did wrong, but it's something you can forgive them for? Is this something that's happens all the time? Is this something that shows that they really don't care how I am.
And to kind of clear that up too, there's a difference between pushing your limits and pushing boundaries. Like,
Agreed.
yeah, I mean, you're gonna push your limits, obviously, to, like, if there's something you're trying to complete, and you're trying to get over, what you consider a hump. That's definitely pushing your limit. But pushing your boundary is like, if once again, like, if you say no, it's no. That anything beyond that, like even trying physical force or, like humiliation, unless you're into that thing, but that's definitely like pushing a boundary, and that's not something anybody should do. Once you set them, clearly they're there for you because it's you basically negotiated with yourself. This is what I'm willing to do, and this is what I won't tolerate. So don't let anybody actually like push that boundary just because of their wants, or I guess in their case their needs, per quote unquote.
Please don't let people guilt you into that. You're right, Edwin. There's a huge difference between. Sorry, I was making lots of noise. I had to plug my laptop in.
Oh, you good?
But there's a huge difference between pushing boundaries that you've set to keep you safe and pushing limits, because you can push the limit of what you find comfortable by going on a walk for a mile longer, or you can push a boundary where you say, I am not ever going swimming, and somebody pushes you into the pool or something like that. I know that was a very simple thing, but they're very different.
Mm-hmm.
So
And that's the thing, kind of like about BDSM, is like a lot of terms kind of seem the same, and they kind of overlap sometimes, but they are still different.
exactly, you may look them up and they're synonyms to each other, but they have a different meaning
Yeah.
in the BDSM and kink world.
All right. Well, let me. If anybody actually wants to check out the rest of this article, we'll put a link, of course, below. It's got just a few good comic strips, just to kind of, just easy references, I should say, as far as
Yeah.
consent for what we
Yeah,
talked about.
I liked the comics. My favorite one's the top one. Was these two guys are looks like they're at a gym, but one guy's standing there on his phone wearing a jersey, and this other guy walks up and just tackles him. And the jersey guys was like, "Hey, what was that for?" And the other guy was like, "You're wearing a jersey. You were asking for it." And then the last one says, "Clothing does not establish consent." So I just like that one because that's something I hear a lot from um, from people. Like, if you hear somebody was raped and they had been to a club and were wearing what would be considered risque clothes. Oh, she was asking for it. She was asking for it. No, she was wearing clothes to go have fun. And she did not ask to be raped. She did not ask to be sexually assaulted. She did not ask to be hurt. So I really like that one. It just
And and like we said, there's
good point.
other comics in here, so y'all can check it out on your free
There's
time.
there's 4 comics. Jeez, there's 4 comics there. Go take a look at them. They're kind of cool. They're an easy way, especially if you want to talk to your kids about consent, because it's never too early to talk about consent.
Very true.
I think they're a good way to talk to them about it without getting overly complicated.
All right. And then we have one more article.
Yes, I'm just going to go over. It's the 4 rules of consent. It's called The 4 Rules of Sexual Consent. It's by Michael Kaufman, and it's from way back in 2013. It's a good article if you want to sit and read the whole thing. It's pretty short, but I'm just going to go over the 4 rules really quick, because I think we'll cover them more in depth in the podcast. So, rule number 1 is when it comes to sex, only yes means yes. Maybe doesn't mean yes. I guess so doesn't mean yes. Let's see what happens doesn't mean yes. And no never means yes. They give a sample that says, hey, do you want to tear off our clothes and have sex? Yeah, that sounds cool. That is consent. So, rule number 2, it's your responsibility to know if you have consent.
Very true.
They give an example. I agreed. They give an example that says if a cop pulls you over when you're speeding, it doesn't help to say, officer, I didn't know there was a speed limit. Ditto with sex. Whether it's kissing someone, filling them up, or going all the way, it's your responsibility to learn the other person's limits, and it's their responsibility to learn yours. You can't just believe they want to do what you're asking. You've got to know for sure. And remember, it's not her responsibility to say no, it's your responsibility to know she says yes, and vice versa.
Very true.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Rule number 3: nothing you've already done gives you permission to do the next thing. That
Amen.
Man, this is actually kind of a big one, and not even just here in kink, but just like dating and relationships. Is a big one as well. So, but
Absolutely.
but to just kind of follow up on it, it says you're kissing like you're mad. She's totally into it. That must mean it's okay to get your hands under her shirt. Wrong. You've got your clothes off and you're all over each other. That must mean it's okay to have intercourse, right? Wrong.
Wrong.
So that's just kind of one of those things. Like, I kind of have like a mini story for that too. But like,
Story time.
oh no. So there's, oh man. So there was this chick that like, I was kind of seeing for a little while. I shouldn't even say like seeing like that. It was kind of like we liked each other and there was like obviously like tension there. And so I went over to her house one night and I had been drinking and she had been drinking as well. And like I'm just kind of chilling on the couch and then like she's like in her room like doing something and so I'm just kind of like laying on the bed and all of a sudden she like climbs on top of me. She starts like biting my lip and biting my neck. So I'm assuming like okay, well this is going to go on. I stuck. The most I could do is maybe stick my hand up her shirt, and there was no way, we were going to knock boots in that apartment that night. And for the while there, I couldn't understand why, but that was another thing about kind of like where I, realized that it was more about consent right there. Where I wanted to do all this stuff and I was trying, but there was no consent there, so that could have definitely ended up bad had she have not taken so kindly to it.
That's true. I'm glad that you realize that. Some people don't. They just think that, like, oh, she invited me over into her bed, or she took off her clothes. That must mean whatever. So it says here in the article, it says the truth is that unless you're involved in a regular relationship, and have already worked out a set of rules, every time you go to a new level, you've got to get consent.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And something it can sometimes break the flow if you are making out and the shirt's off and you want to go for the pants and you have to ask, but it's better to have that consent and to kind of step back from that than to not have that consent and have it become an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one thing about kink and negotiating in kink is that all happens before, and that all should happen. All of the negotiation of what's going to happen should come before everything gets heated.
Very true. And obviously, like the best, like the best partners or the best scenes are usually the ones that are worked out way before the scene even happens. So
Agreed.
yeah, there's no questioning. There's just kind of reiterating what you're saying. So there's no questions or any like. It's almost like you don't have to think about it, and that's always nice. You can just do.
Yes. Yes. And that helps the flow. But if you haven't negotiated it out, then definitely ask. But and there's ways you can make it sexy. There's ways you can do it without breaking the flow. But you definitely need to ask and
Yeah.
get that consent. Whether you be a female or a male, whether you be non binary, whether you be gender fluid, you need to ask your partner
And
and
then
you need to negotiate that.
Very true. And last but not least, rule number 4, which I think all of us, uh, well, not everybody drinks or have done any type of like mind altering substances, but I think this is kind of hit all of us, so it kind of hits home for all of us.
I
Whether it
think
being
so.
out at a bar or even like your college days, or maybe some kids start young back in high school drinking their parents' stash, stuff like that. It says if you're drunk out of your mind, you can't give consent. Well, it says can't give or get consent, which is true. Like there's no if, ands, or buts a way around that. Like like in real estate, they're always like, they're always talking about like, signing contracts, under duress. Is that void or voidable? There's not even like, it's not even a question if it's completed or not. But it's kind of like that where, if you're under any type of substances or anything like that, there's no way, no possible way. That's like saying like, hey, it's you're about to get a bonus at work or you're about to get this new job. You go in there drunk from like a night of drinking, the night before, obviously. You go in there and you sign the
Mhm.
contract. Let's just say you definitely did yourself a disservice.
Agreed. Well, and I like that it points out that you can't give or get consent because the other person, you could be drunk out of your mind and be like, yeah, let's have sex, let's have sex, let's have sex. And the other person can be sober and can take advantage of that. So you can't get consent from somebody if they're too drunk to be able. It's impossible to have informed consent if you're too drunk or stoned to completely know what you're doing. And I like that.
Very true.
Those are the two articles that we really liked this week. And we just wanted to share them with you.
But there'll be obviously the link or in the description down below. You're more than welcome to check them out for yourselves, or maybe share them with your friends, or even if you and your partner, or even like some kink friends, want to discuss. It wouldn't be a bad idea. There's never a wrong time to talk about consent ever.
Agreed. Consent is always a topic to discuss. So, um, I'd say we can move on to our topic, but we're kind of already on it.
Yeah,
Um,
we're just yeah. Essentially,
we're
everything's
just
gonna overlap.
right. We're just gonna continue moving on to the non-article part of the topic. Um, we have picked out 4 points that we kind of wanted to hammer home on consent, um, and kind of just go into a little more detail about them and why we think they're important. Um, should we give them the points first, or should we give them as we go?
Um, Probably just as we go. We'll just make it easy.
Okay, sounds good. Do you want to start, or do you want me to?
I'll start. I'll give it a crack this time.
Okay,
Uh,
go for it.
it says why verbal consent is important. Um, Let me see. Where should I start this? Okay, before you before you do anything, like you personally as a person, before you do anything, you've kind of already talked to yourself about, once again, like what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do, what kind of person you are, things that you would accept, right, or deem appropriate, right? Well,
Mm-hmm.
without realizing that for yourself, there's no possible way I feel like you can give somebody else consent to do something. I mean, I understand people do things that you didn't think you would like, but what if they did something that you didn't think you would like and then realize that you don't like it and then they're still doing it? Now it's kind of like you can't really go back on it. You know what I mean? I mean,
Wrong. You can always go back on it, but I get what you're saying. Sometimes you feel guilty whether that you're like, oh, I already said yes, it's fine, but I don't want to ruin the moment or in this, like in the whole scene or whatever, because I suddenly don't like it.
that's very true. Um, but that's why, at least like it's kind of like how it seemed, because it's almost like you let this person do it. Now it's like you said, you kind of just feel guilty about them not being able to do it, so you just do it to quote unquote make them happy. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Well, that's really true. And like, even in non-sexual situations, like if somebody wants to go watch a movie that you have absolutely no interest in, and in fact you loathe it, you think it's the worst movie in the world, you hate the topic of it, you're against whatever, or if you're vegan and somebody's trying to push you to eat meat,
Oh
or the
yeah.
other way around, if you're a meat eater and somebody's trying to push you to eat a vegan meal, and they're like, here, try it, try it, try it, try it, and you just kind of wear down over them pushing so much, that's not really consent. It's kind of, when it's finally like, fine, I'll try it, it's more to get them off your back than it is that you actually want to try it or you actually want to go watch that movie. So that's why getting that verbal consent and listening to that verbal consent is so important.
I think we should probably do a show on that as well. Like, not just like verbal communication, but like actually like active listening to your partner, like hearing their wants and needs versus it just kind of being like a pass through.
Agreed. Hang on, let me get my pen. I'll write it down so we remember.
Add it to the list.
To the list. Y'all, we sat and went over topics for this season because we want to do 24 hours of King in our first season. We want to give you 24 hours. If you were to listen to us from the beginning to the end of the whole season, you could listen for 24 hours straight. And so we were going over topics because we didn't want to announce that. Sorry, I kind of announced it, but we didn't want to announce it before we found enough topics. And we could probably give you 48 hours
At least.
and still have some. But we had, 60 topics?
Yeah, it was like 60 or something ridiculous.
Yeah. And it was, we were both went with 30 topics. We're like, well, let's do 30 and we'll just do what we overlap. And then we didn't overlap very much.
No, definitely not. We just kind of added things to the week, but
Exactly.
It's kind of hard because like we want the show to be like short but still like effective, and even like chopping it up is still hard too. So
It is.
I didn't want this to be like every other like podcast where these guys are going on for like 2.5 hours, just like essentially just rambling, and that's what I'm trying to avoid here. Like that's why we kind of keep the show like it's structured. It doesn't. It might not seem structured, but hopefully it does. It's structured enough to where it's like we can get in, say what we need to say, provide the message, and then get out.
Agreed. We want to be able to bring a point to you and then encourage you to go continue looking it up on your own, because that's what we're doing. We're studying.
Go ahead.
I just was ending it there. We're studying. You should too.
Agreed. Every day is kind of like a learning lesson, but the more and more like you learn. Like everybody does kink every day, and everybody feels like they're a know-it-all. But I can tell you right now, every time you pick up a book, you're gonna learn something new. Every time you read about a subject, even in kink, I promise you're probably gonna learn something new, or just something that you may have forgotten. Stuff like that. So that's what you always want to be doing, because the moment that, like you said, it was that old quote: the moment you stop learning, you start dying.
You start dying. Oh, I found out who that was, and now I don't remember. I want to say I'm gonna Google it. But actually, I found out a couple people have said it, and I was trying to find who the first person said it. There's been a few different iterations of it. Let's see. The moment
the first man
you
to do it.
Stop learning quote. Okay, so the first one. So Albert Einstein said it. Once you stop learning, you start dying. Travis Town, who is a teacher, a history teacher, uses a variation of that quote: never be afraid to learn something, because the moment you stop learning is the moment you start dying.
True.
And who else says that? Robert T. Kiyosaki?
Robert Kiyosaki, yeah.
There we go.
Financial investor.
Um,
He's got a couple shows, but I'm in the financial markets. That's why.
okay. Rick Warren has apparently said it. Yeah, so quite a few people have said it, but it looks like it came from Albert Einstein first.
All right, Einstein,
Um,
you did us a favor with that quote. Shout out to you,
you
sir.
sure did.
He was probably kinky back then too. He had some wild ass hair. He was probably having some wild ass sex. Like,
Okay. Well, topic number 2 is consent is more than a yes and no. It's an actual conversation. There are times, let me preface this, there are times where yes and no are an entire sentence, and that's okay. But a lot of times, a conversation is needed. A whole conversation of, this is what I want to do and why. And if the answer is still no, that's fine, but have that conversation of, especially in like the kink world, if you're playing with a partner in more than just like a pickup scene, have that conversation of why it's a no or why it's a yes, or you know, there's a lot of times I get like a knee-jerk reaction. Master will bring something up and I'm like, no, and then I'm like, well, maybe. And so we have that conversation of, well, why is it suddenly a no? Why is that your knee-jerk reaction? Is it actually a no? And so it leads us down to, and sometimes it is actually a no, but it leads us down a path of discovery and learning. And that's where we push our comfort limit and not, the boundaries that we've set up.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Like consent. Um, Consent to me, and this is to kind of go on with consent is more than a yes or no. It's an actual conversation. Consent is like floors of a building. So at the first floor, there's certain things that you're willing to do that you'll give consent for, no matter what, no problem. And there's just things that you see or that you really want to do in kink that you're just like, all right, gung ho, I'm gonna do it without realistically establishing consent. What if it's you want to do needle play, but the top wanted to the top's used to having naked subs or subs with obviously like small amounts of clothes, and you don't feel comfortable with that. Well, that's something that you need to prepare for, and let them know that that is something that you are willing to do. Or if you don't feel comfortable, that's something that you're not willing to do. So you might have to just slowly move through the floors of consent, rather than just doing it because it's something that you want to, or that you feel you want to do at the time. Does that make sense?
That's a good way to put it. Because and then it kind of goes into our next point too. But somebody could be like, oh, I want to do needle play, to go off of your example, or I want to do, I want to do impact play. Is probably another good example. And well, yes, I want to do an impact scene, but what do I want to be impacted with? How many needles do I want to use? How many, do I want stingy? Do I want thuddy? Do I want to be hung by needles, or do I just want to be punctured by needles? I haven't done needle play, so I don't know. I don't know the terms of that next yet. But I mean, impact play. Do I want to be naked? Do I want to overclothes? Do I want to over my panties? Um, do I want bruises? Where do I want bruises? Do I want, there's more than just, especially in kink, there's more than just, yes, I want to have an impact scene. You've got to travel those floors and those stairs. I like that analogy. You have to travel those floors and take the stairs until you've had that entire conversation of what that means to somebody. What does an impact scene mean? What does fire play mean to you? What does pet play? What is power exchange to you? What is DS to you? What is a relationship to you? Are we poly? Are we mono? You have to have those conversations to really dig to the depths to make sure you guys are on the same page rather than just a yes, I want to do that.
and and to even like flip it on the other side too, like if if let's say, and I always say this from like a top or like a dominant like position, but sometimes I'll switch it up, but obviously like if your sub doesn't want to do something and it's something that you want to do, like you can't really let that hurt your ego. You know what I mean? Like don't let something like that, especially that is basically the prime example of consent right there. Like it's something that you want to do as a dom, but your sub doesn't want to do it. That is basically consent right there, where you're gonna have to figure out like, okay, well, one, am I gonna be happy about this whole dynamic, even though I can't do this little small thing because I don't have consent for it? But who's to say she won't give you consent for it, later on? And
Mm-hmm.
it's just kind of one of those things where if you're willing to, that's kind of a communication thing too, to like talk about like, are you willing to grow past your limits, or are you looking to like we were saying, like extend your limits per se, push those
Agreed.
limits, and then
Agreed. Well, that's. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Continue, and
oh
then I'll hit my point.
oh yeah, no, I was just saying that once you're willing to do that, that'll definitely like help with your, I guess, the emotional issue as far as them wanting to do something. But all in all, you just have to respect the other person's wishes and boundaries, and if it's not going to work out, hey, it's not going to work out. But who's to say at a later date that if y'all got together, well, maybe that's one of her. Maybe she's already pushed past that limit and she's willing to do it. So that's all I was gonna say.
Agreed. Agreed. I was just going to kind of point out the soft limits and the hard limits. Well, is that a soft limit right now, and it's just something we're going to continue to build up to, or is that a hard limit that we're just going to stop, drop the conversation, and move on because that's not something we want? And having that conversation, and it might be that it's a hard limit for you right now because you don't know enough, or I don't know enough, or I don't know you enough as my partner to be able to consent to that because I'm not informed enough on what it means. And that's where that conversation is. Again, of okay, we need to learn some more, so let's have a conversation of what you need to learn and where to learn it and what I know about it.
And I feel like that goes right into like the next topic too.
It does. It does.
I mean, it's established a
The
shared
ne-
language to talk about desires and sex before, during, and after a scene.
that's I really like this one because I kind of like I shared in the last episode, which you all haven't heard because we haven't posted yet. Um, but the first time I played with Master, um, so let me start this way, a pretty typical, very normal, um, safe word in dungeons and in public spaces is red. Red means stop. It means no more. It means we're done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then they'll use yellow for kind of a slowdown. I'm not liking that thing, but I don't want to end the scene, or I think I'm having too much of that. Let's try something else. Or I didn't like that toy and that we negotiated and I said what I wanted to try. Don't use that one again. Try something else. And then Green's like, yeah, I'm good to go. And so they call it the stoplight system. However, the first time it's very well known. If you go to any dungeon or public play space and you say, I want to use the stoplight system, most people will know what it is without batting an eye. However, when I negotiated with Master, he knew what it was, but he still clarified and said, okay, you want to use red for stop and yellow for slow down, rather than just assuming we meant the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's another thing, like, most people use the word kitty for a female vagina.
Oh, true.
However, I have a friend who uses the word kitty for her breasts. So if she says, yeah, I want to do impact on my kitties.
You better know which kitty she talking about.
Exactly. So, and if you just need to make sure that the language you are using is very clear to your partner. You need to, if it's not the female anatomy word, you need to make sure that you either use that female anatomy word, or if you prefer a different word, show them where you mean. Or again, with the impact play. Okay, well, are we using whips, floggers, hands, paddles, crops? There's so much more to an impact play scene than just impact. There's so many impact tools. Do you want to go hard? Again, with the bruises, you know. Sorry, I'm on my pedestal. I'll step off my soapbox.
No, you're 100% right. Like, there. Let me see. There's always a shared language, and that's why they always talk about like communication is important on like many fronts. But I mean, being with somebody or having a dynamic, you start to kind of develop a shared language, like you were talking about with that lady calling it her kitty. Well, her dominant already knew what the kitty was supposed to be versus trying to assume what it was. So once you establish like a shared language, especially with your partner or even with like friends of kink or in general, that's always good before you do anything. So I mean, like for instance, like inviting a friend to a party, right? People usually have play parties or they'll have get together, kinky get-togethers. Well, it doesn't. What if you told one of your friends, right? Hey, I'm going to a party Saturday night. Do you want to come? Well, you didn't clarify to your friend that it was a kinky party. You just said, hey, we're going to a party. Do you want to come? So your friend is probably thinking, hey, if it's a dude, he's going to get his nice pants on. He's going to get his button up, and probably going to go pick up like a six-pack or something. And if it's a girl, she's going to have her nice dress, maybe her heels or wedges, whatever it is. And they're going to this party assuming that, hey, it's just a regular drinking, hanging out party. And they walk in, and somebody's getting beat from the St. Andrew's cross. You got another lady over here on the spanking bench, hollering for Jesus. Uh, and
You've got somebody in the corner in a cage.
right, and your friend walks in and be like, "Wait, I thought you said this was a party." And you look at him and be like, "Yeah, this is a party." And
This is a party.
you see the problem. So now, what your friend was obviously happy before, now walking into the situation, how do you think they feel? So
Exactly.
not only, I mean, you got consent, but you got the wrong kind of consent. Either that,
Exactly. You didn't.
and you didn't give the details. And I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Exactly. Well, your example just flashed me back to your story in the first episode of where you found somebody that was looking for group play.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, okay, let's go play some games. And they're like, oh no, we just want a third to have sex with. Well, you didn't have the shared language at that point to know what you were trying to consent to.
Yep. And I mean, I gave them
So
consent. I was coming over, but I didn't know I was gonna need that kind of consent.
exactly. Exactly. And it sounds like, I mean, in that situation, they did what was, because group play is a pretty popular way to say you're looking for somebody else to have sex with you and your partner. However, definitely should have clarified. But it sounds like once you got there, they did clarify and they waited for that correct kind of consent before they moved on with the group play.
Yeah, very true. And I mean, like I was saying before, it kind of took 2 hours before it was like, all right, it is what it is. So,
Yeah. So, but that's why having that shared language and being able to have that discussion before and during and after a scene and sex and a party or wherever you're going is so important, because little words could mean something else. And it's like we were saying earlier, like between boundaries and limits, there's, just because they're a synonym in the regular world doesn't mean they're the exact same thing in a kink world or in sex.
very true.
So yeah.
Well, I mean, for the most part, that kind of completes the topic
No,
list.
did we hit the third one or did we skip?
I thought we did hit the third one. Know your wants and limits and be able to verbalize them. Yeah, I thought we did.
I mean, I hit it. I guess we just didn't ever read the title we had put to it.
Oh, uh,
So,
I
so
mean,
those three titles that we had, we'll just read them off again. We've kind of hit every point in there. It was the 4 points were why verbal consent is important.
mm-hmm,
Consent is more than a yes and a no. It's an actual conversation.
it is.
Know your own wants and limits and be able to verbalize them. Establish shared language to talk about desires and sex before, during, and after a scene or sex.
Very true.
Um,
And
Consent is important, y'all.
you know if I like everyday kind of like progression. So I mean, uh, a good way to look at it is go ask your your other half of your dynamic. Ask them, if there's anything that they've needed to clarify, or maybe I should have like a good old sit down of maybe the wants and the actual limits, because some people do them and they don't ever change them. So you don't really know what to work on if you're not really tracking it. So
Agreed. Agreed. In fact, I was talking to my sister the other day about her relationship, and she really loves her relationship, but she was saying something. I was like, well, wasn't that a boundary you had established before? Why are you suddenly ignoring it? And she went, oh, you're right. As our relationship changed, something that was a boundary and is still an established a boundary I want to keep established has kind of fallen to the wayside because we got so excited over things. So
mm-hmm.
having that, going back and having that conversation and revisiting is important. So
Yeah, I mean, even like this, I'm not even gonna lie, like this one is kind of like, I feel like even I've been lacking as far as like consent and whatnot. So maybe it's kind of something I need to go over with my submissive about. Of course I know like wants and needs, but I never want to like put anybody in that weird position. You know what I mean?
exactly. So I found this meme the other day that I really liked, and it's a picture of French fries, and it says consent, and then it's about consent, but it breaks fries down into what's it called, an acronym,
Mm-hmm.
and it says consent: freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, and specific.
Yep.
And I really like that because those, to simplify it all down, those are all really important things. It definitely has to be freely given. Somebody can't coerce you into it. You can change your consent at any time. Don't let yourself or anyone else guilt you for that. Um, be informed about what you're consenting to, whether it be going to a kink party or eating a brownie that has pot in it. Whatever it is, make sure you're
Special
informed.
brownies.
Or yeah, yeah. I so marijuana is legal up here in Michigan, and I walked into a store the other day, and I was like, oh, those look really good. And then there, I noticed the big sign that said um, 18 older, like telling me that there was pot in it. And I was like, oh, I don't like pot. It gives me anxiety. I end up in hospitals. I don't want those brownies anymore. I'm glad there was a big sign. So
Well, it gave you the option. You gave it no consent, and the transaction didn't happen.
exactly. I was informed of what was going on. So, and then just if you're gonna consent to something, and I mean, enthusiastic consent doesn't mean you need to like jump up and down and be like the Mario like yippee, like just. And I mean, there's gonna be things that you're gonna consent to, like okay, you clean the bathroom and I'll go scoop the dog poo. Like you're not gonna be super enthusiastic about that,
True.
but you still want to make sure that you're consenting to something that there's an important reason behind your consenting. There's you're freely giving that consent. You're not being coerced, and it's not because you feel guilty. You're enthusiastic, meaning you have weighed your options, and this is your better option.
Very true.
And then be specific about what you're consenting to. Just like Edwin, he didn't know till he was already at the house what group play meant.
Surprise!
Surprise!
Well,
I'm still stuck on that. Makes me giggle.
oh man, I'm sure I'll be thinking of more stories as the show kind of goes on. But we are gonna go ahead and I guess kind of wind it down here. Any final remarks or anything?
Do anything. Get consent. Just because I'm gonna put it out there again. Just because it might break the mood to ask if you can take somebody's pants off or somebody's shirt off or have sex with them because you're making out and it's already hot and steamy, you can make it sexy. You can say, I'd really love to take your pants off now. You would look so sexy, or whatever. You can find a way to not break the mood while still getting consent. And if you break the mood by getting consent and that person's upset about it, that's not the person you want to be dealing with because they won't take your consent serious.
Very true.
That's what I'm going to leave with.
All right. I'm just gonna leave it with consent. It doesn't matter which way you put it. It could be in the kink world. It could be in your everyday life. Shit, it could be with your family. Consent is huge, and don't waver on what you will and what you won't do. If no is no, then let no be no. But if it's something that you don't mind doing, just make sure that obviously like you read up on it, know the safety, so then that way you're consenting first with yourself, so then you can consent with other people, and that that okay, this is once again a yes or a no or a deal. So I'd probably say wants are like the colors to a coloring book, but the lines are like consent. Is the best way to put it for me.
I like it. I like it. Your wants and your limits are the coloring book, but consent is the crayons.
Consent's the lines. So.
Consent's the lines.
Well, on that note, my name is Edwin.
And I'm Coco.
And
this has been DarkSideAdventures.
Episode 3, yes, ma'am. Shameless plug, of course.
Yes, don't forget those.
Yeah, it's a must now. Y'all can find us on SoundCloud. Where we should have all the episodes up there here pretty soon. The first episode is still up there, so y'all can go check that out if you already haven't. And that's, of course, DarkSideAdventures on SoundCloud. You can also find us DarkSideAdventures on YouTube now with the very first live stream. So thank y'all for being with us for this one. And, of course, if you have any questions or any ideas for the show or any articles you want to submit, you all can do that and send that to us at darksideadventures@gmail.com. And am I forgetting anything?
You did also have a Twitter.
Oh, shit.
Yes, we ventured onto Twitter. We're still learning it, so keep some prayers going for us that we figure it out. It is DarkSideAdventures.
Yeah, some asshole already took Dark Side, so.
No, we just didn't have. There wasn't enough spaces. It only let us have 15.
I would have just assumed like a Star Wars fan or somebody from Star Wars, but.
No, Twitter apparently just has character restrictions on everything. So those are our shameless plugs. Feel free to reach out to us in the comments, or if you aren't out to your friends and family, don't feel comfortable commenting in the comments, give us an email. Mm-hmm. Send us a thing on Twitter.
Yeah, let us know.
Can you DM on YouTube? I don't know.
Can you DM on YouTube? I don't think so.
No. I don't know. I think you can DM on Twitter. We're still figuring things out.
Yeah. Well, can you? Yeah, you can DM on Twitter, right?
I'm pretty sure.
I'm
pretty sure.
You send that DM on Twitter.
So. Help us figure it out, y'all.
Yes. All right. Well, we are gone, and we will see y'all next time.
Adios.
Bye.